play around their duo synergy with jungler and mid lane to make sure to shut down Mission early, since he has been pretty consistent and actually untouched during the early to mid game.
Well, we're going to go ahead and jump into Champion Select. It's going to be Machi on the blue side and then Talon Esports on red for Game 1. And we're going to open things up with the, well, go-to LeBlanc ban when going up against Candy.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. We talked a lot about how Candy was going to have to do something to force Mission out off of his spot. And one of the best champions to do that is LeBlanc. So it's not surprising that it's gone.
Interesting enough, I know we also had a little bit of talk before the show that the Graves ban has started to pop up a lot within the PCS, but you almost feel like this isn't the champion for this region.
I don't think PCS is a region that that really suits Graves. It's not surprising that it's banned because it is very strong right now, but like I think that just because of the way that teams tend to play in this region, I don't think that the style of Graves really suits it, because he just kind of farms and doesn't really do anything. So it doesn't really fit with what these teams really want to do.
Well, taking a look here, the bans, though, looking pretty much the same as what we expected throughout the course of the regular season. Usually we see the Senna and as well as this Kalista now pop up a bit more, especially when going up against Talon. Interesting, though, neither Candy or Mission are going to have access to the Azir.
Yeah, it makes me wonder whether or not we're going back to the Varus, since it has been the usual red side ban, and that means Machi is just happy to take this one. For Talon, they will be happy to take perhaps the Misfortune as well. That has been working out consistently throughout the entire split. So we'll have to see what they decide to pick up in their first rotation.
I was going to bring up the fact that Syndra's also up, so I wouldn't be surprised if we just see Syndra being flexed here. Syndra into Varus in the bot lane is still a matchup that's fine for Syndra, so that's another way that they can kind of look to deal with that champion.
Yeah, and for Candy himself, he's often been able to play the Syndra rather well, so we'll have to see. Possibly not going to even show that it's a flex immediately if they want to go ahead and take this Misfortune, but they may put some priority on to say something like the Trundle.
Yeah, they're thinking about it, and even before in the regular season, we've seen a couple of Varus in the mid lane just to flex it up and play a little bit of mind games earlier on, and that means, the Misfortune is still open, and as well as the flex coming from Talon on the Syndra is open as well, but picking up this Corki means, okay, that's going to be a bot lane Varus and a Corki mid lane.
And
the
go ahead.
The blind pick Corki is, well, it's not necessarily blind, I suppose, because you have seen Syndra, but it's interesting to me because what that kind of says is that, whatever you pick mid, I'm confident playing this champion. So good to see that Mission is feeling confident today in the champion that he's kind of known for.
Let's see now. You're also going to have the Thresh getting locked in here for Machi. Koala loves to go for roams early on in the game after the first or second back. For Talon, though, they go ahead and lock in this Misfortune. They want to get that AD carry pickup before we head into the second ban phase where it could get banned out.
Yeah, there seems to be no mystery anymore to which champions are going to go where. But in the meantime, it seems Talon would like to constrict the jungle pool this time around, as Rek'Sai could be the next potential ban, as Gemini has been picking that up. We'll have to see what Machi decides to bring to the table in terms of the matchup for PK and Hanabi at topside.
I really wonder what Kai Wing's comfort level on Bard is, because even though the Thresh is up, I think that Bard can play into the Thresh in certain matchups. So I'm really interested to see how the support pick shakes out here. They could just go with something very defensive like the Braum, which is kind of like the tried and true darling of the PCS. But I kind of want to see him play something a little more risky. I mean, this is the grand finals.
Yeah, as your finals, if you're going to bring out something, this is your last possible opportunity, of course. Taking a look at the bans, though, once again, Talon, they're going to go and just try and target down the jungle pool of Gemini, getting rid of the Jarvan as well as the Lee Sin. Machi, on the other hand, don't wish to play up against the Yuumi, and we might be seeing maybe possibly that Braum ban possibly too, if they want to try and at least take away another option to try and intercept some of the damage from this Varus.
Yeah, I think Nautilus is still open for the taking if Talon decides to play a little bit more aggressive, since they kind of lack that frontline engage, if you will. And as well as I love how Crow brought that up in terms of how confident Kai Wing is on the Bard, because Kai Wing picked Bard 4 times in the regular season, and that's a 100% win rate, except for the fact that during the playoff season, it hasn't really one for the current playoffs. So we'll have to see as the Blitzcrank will be picked up instead.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Blitz does really well into Thresh in general. It's not the pick I wanted to see, but I understand why they would pick it. I guess the hooks are a little easier to land because they also have the trundle for setup. So you put those 4 champions together in front of a tower, and you've got a bad time for whoever's standing underneath of it.
Yeah, but that does require that River has to make an appearance on the map relatively early on if they want to try and maybe make something happen out of that. Interesting, though, that the Rek'Sai has actually been able to make it all the way into the second pick phase, as that's going to be locked in for Gemini, and now they're looking at possibly getting something comfortable for PK, possibly a bruiser like the Renekton, or possibly the Aatrox.
Yeah, now the biggest question is... Go ahead.
I was saying, the thing is, I don't like the idea of blind picking an Aatrox here because there are so many counters that Talon could play, and you're kind of daring Hanabi to pick something, like a Bruiser, like a Fiora, or the Camille, and see how he can perform on it.
Well, we'll see here as that Renekton is available for Hanabi if he wishes to go for it, and we'll see whether or not that is going to be the case here, or do we get to see him play out the Jace, which he was on the receiving end, actually, during the games yesterday up against Civ. This time, maybe going to bring it out himself as it does get locked in.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was afraid of. Pitting Hanabi on an aggressive champion. We haven't seen him play one in a while until we saw the Renekton a few days ago, but I'm really concerned about PK playing this matchup. I wonder how confident he must be. Very confident on his Aatrox if he's just going to blind pick it in a situation where there are so many counters available.
Yeah, it is something that we got to see frequently, I believe, during the regular season. It was one of PK's pretty much go-tos. PK was always pretty stable up in the top lane for Machi. We never really saw him fall behind too often, but he never saw him get ahead here. So I think this is going to be a really good matchup where he has to demonstrate that, he can handle the aggression of Hanabi. Coming out of draft, though, who are you kind of favoring when it comes to these team compositions at a glance, Crow?
I think Talon's draft is definitely... I think Talon's draft is a little more solid and put together in terms of how I think that this comp works together. I'm a little bit concerned because, again, they did still get the Rek'Sai and the Varus. So in terms of their ability to just have very strong champions on their side, that concerns me a little bit. But I think just on paper, I think Talon went out on this draft simply because if you put Trundle, Syndra, and Jace anywhere near a tower, anyone standing underneath of it is not going to have a great time.
Well, thank you for joining us, Crow, for the draft. We're going to go ahead and head on into Game 4, Game 1 of the Spring Grand Finals. Machi Esports taking on Talon. See who can be kings of spring.
Let's go. Grand finale time. BO5. I am so ready because we've already seen these two teams duke it out in a best-of-5 series. And it was Talon, unfortunately, falling a little bit short, but still taking it to game number 5. Makes me wonder if this is going to be our 4th game number 5 in the entirety of the playoffs for the Grand Finals.
I'll be frank, Riku, I would be so happy. I would be absolutely ecstatic if we got ourselves another game 5, but at the same time, I know my vocal cords would probably hate me for it as well. It has been a long postseason, especially for Talon, as they have brought every single series that is a best-of-5 to that Game 5 decider. And they're always the team that is having to tie that Game 4. They are somehow able to maintain composure under extreme pressure in multiple instances, whether it's just getting, knocked down into the lower bracket or being completely eliminated from playoffs.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with what you guys brought up in the beginning of the stream, and where it was they are a little bit on the light side when it comes to approaching the game. Even when we see, Talon's posts, they're a little bit, on the meme side of things. So I think that's the reason why there's that certain mental fortitude, that it's not too heavy, but at the same time, they still maintain that seriousness when it comes to games, and it manages to pull off because they're now in the grand finale.
Yeah, you could say every time they have one of their victory memes over on social media, that's them relieving all the pressure. That is just the great relief they get at the end of the series, that they finally get to post that. Even then, when they sometimes lose, we do see them having a positive attitude. But you're now into this grand final. There is no second opportunities. An entire split of work has come to this very series. And you have to think back for Talon, they've practically played 2 regular seasons because this is their 18th game in playoffs. They play 18 in a double round robin when it comes to the PCS itself. So they have played now close to 38 games of League of Legends in spring, competitive.
That's a ton of games. And for Talon, I think the good side of it is that they can at least recognize certain mistakes that they've never really identified previously. But as you can see, Mission at the moment has been getting poked out here, which is quite normal when we saw Machi and as well as Talon for the first time. It's either or, but it doesn't really result to any kills whatsoever, as both of these mid laners have been doing a great job equalizing the goal despite having that being poked out and shoved out of the lane.
And we see Gemini already pathing in over, but we do see River getting rather aggressive here, wanted to go for the invade, but maybe realizing, all right, Gemini decided to start on the top side of the map, so River's not able to try and go for a 1v1. This is pretty much what we saw him try and play while on the Trundle against AHQ, against Kongyu, where he went for that invade on the second buff to try and go for the 1v1 and at least force out a summon.
Yeah, he has been trying to, you know, remove or rather ruin the pathing or the rhythm of the enemy jungler, but seems to me Machi Esports is one step ahead, so had to just change the regular path a little bit so River doesn't really expect that to be there. And even in the meantime though, in terms of how this is going to play out, at least you can see that for bot side, Bruce and Koala do have priority. So for Kaiwing, it will be a little bit difficult earlier on to try and roam with the jungler, with River. So he will definitely time it during the first or probably third or fourth backs later on.
Yeah, usually we see that second back come in for possibly the Rift Herald if a team really wants to try and contest it. With that priority, that actually works in favor of Koala because we've often seen him go for vision like we just saw, and even sometimes path up into that mid lane and try and get a gank off for Mission, especially with Candy playing something like a Syndra where you're not very mobile yourself. You could be a prime target here for both the Thresh and that Rek'Sai.
Yeah, especially when the enemy jungler has already seen you completing one combo with the Scatter of the Weak, then you're a little bit vulnerable in comparison to Mission, who would always most likely keep the Valkyrie off cooldown rather, just so that it's ready in case River decides to gank.
Well, let's see, a decent amount of aggression coming out here as Hanabi gets dragged back by the chains. Gotta be careful, because look at that Gemini, that is a sneaky tunnel. Hanabi kind of figures something's weird here, as Gemini's been able to sneak his way into that rush. It looks like Hanabi's going to be counting his blessing. Yeah, he saw it off the edge of the vision from that minion. So Gemini, he was very close. That is a nasty tunnel. I've not seen Rek'Sai do that too often in the PCS.
Yeah, exactly. Considering that I think it's just one of the first few instances that we've seen the outflow being used by this Rek'Sai, but in the meantime, yeah, Hanabi has his fire senses and noticed something different from PK, and he just backs away. And yeah, I feel like that's the reason why Gemini is a little bit comfortable ganking topside, because I don't think he will expect any sort of counter ganks from River, since his attention is definitely somewhere else based from the previous matches we've seen so far.
You mentioned Kaiwing, he likes going for those roams, but he gets caught out on a control ward that was laid down by Mission, so that'll give him safety on this Corki, even though he's down when it comes to his mana pool. Doesn't have any corrupting pot potions left, but he does have that biscuit if he really wants to use it. As River looking to path up toward the top side of the map. First dragon of the game is going to be a Cloud Drake. We'll see whether or not any team looks to try and prioritize that immediately. It's not an Infernal, so you're not looking at the extra attack damage. But you'd still like to try and get those stacks early if you're looking to go toward the soul later on in the match.
And looking at the vision too towards Riverside, Talon is really expecting that Koala, since they do have priority, to just keep visiting at this in the mid lane. So that's going to be under surveillance in that portion.
Well, Hanabi getting rather aggressive here on the top side of the map. Gets the hammer swing to push back PK, and he gets himself over to safety with the flash. So Jace will not have that summoner available, so he's going to have to play a little bit more careful as Gemini makes his, I believe, second appearance up in the top side of the map.
Yeah, and for Gemini, he also kept his flash as well, so he can do the flash and burrow on some of these lanes, most likely come back at top side for a setup once World Ender is supposedly back, and as well as everything else. as Gemini will reach level 6 soon, so the timing is quite perfect.
That bot side of Talon is just going to head on back to base. Looks like Koala and Bruce were hoping to maybe set up a trap. They may wait this one out, possibly, as that wave will be pushing back toward them anyway. They are going to show it, but they're going to let that push back into the tower. Lots of pings, though, coming out toward the Dragon on the side of Talon, so might be looking to try and set up a play, maybe unsure where Koala is exactly, as he still has not shown himself from the brush ever since backing.
Yeah, exactly. They've managed to back. They have no idea where Bruce and Koala is at the moment. They did have been freezing the wave, so they are aware that they still are in that area. But yeah, there is a gold lead building slowly in favor of Bruce at the moment. So whether or not Highwing can take advantage of the Blitzcrank in the next few minutes is the biggest question for me.
Hanabi still playing aggressive here. Gets the quick shock blast combo and then tries to go for a play with the hammer slam. We do see River might use this blast cone to make an appearance if Kaiwing is able to land a hook. Needs to land the rocket grab though in order for this gank to be successful, it seems. So is the ward down in the river. Now instantly, there we go. It's going to be instantly, and Kaiwing able to interrupt the lantern with the fist, and there you go. It's going to be first blood going on over to Unified for Talon in game 1.
Beautiful. You know what? After watching the matches yesterday with River with his insane Lee Sin kick and Kaiwing with the flash hooks, they are feeling the rhythm. And meanwhile, for Machi, they haven't been exactly played in a while. Their last match was definitely against Talon last week. So in terms of warm-up, Talon definitely has that rhythm going on.
You know, they're on the hot streak right now. They got themselves warmed up yesterday during their best of 5 against AHQ. They're able to secure themselves first blood as well as the first dragon of the game. This does allow Gemini, though, to at least go into the top side jungle and try and stake away some of these camps, try and get some gold back into Machi pocket.
Yeah, let's take a look at that replay again. So this is just the perfect setup. Lantern did not help, and at that point, Bruce is just gonna concede and keep the summoner spells for the next possible game.
Now look at this, Kaiwing making an appearance on toward the top side of the map. Hanabi trying to be aggressive, but unfortunately PK is just a little bit out of range, so Kaiwing not going to have a successful roam, as he'll go back to the base and then head himself down toward bot lane as Bruce and Koala continue to keep pressure at least down there even after their first death. They still have about 20 minions in their pocket over Unified.
Yeah, not to mention one plate over the enemy laner too. This is going to be a setup for a dive.
Unified knows this is coming here. That's going to be the Rift-Held pop, so Gemini is mainly trying to look for a possible play. Koala does land the hook into the Corrupting Chains, but team decides not to go through as Kaiwing almost able to get the hook there onto Bruce, but immediately coming out from Machi, they're able to get some gold into Bruce's pocket, even though he was the victim of the first blood.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what could have happened if the Rift Herald was unleashed a little bit further. So the direction is, the eye is not exposed to Unified and Kaiwing, although it doesn't really help as much.
Oh, nice hook there coming in. They get Koala underneath the tower. That's going to be a teleport. In comes River as well, puts down the pillar, and that's going to get the slow, at least onto Koala. Candy was looking for a possible play onto Bruce and flashing on forward with the orb into the Scatter of the Week. It's a double kill for the Syndra.
Beautifully done, and the biggest question was, will Candy be able to keep consistent? And this is the start that Talon is looking for. And you saw how Bruce even tried as his best to just put on his dancing shoes. Unfortunately, it does not work after the unleashed power to the Scatter the Weak.
Oh, Candy going to get knocked up here. Gemini was able to find himself a knock-up. In comes Mission with the flash, and he'll get himself a nice shutdown on over to the Corki in response.
That is a nice cash-in. Not the biggest build-up of bounty, but it is still definitely extra gold on top of the kill. Let's take a look at bot side once more. It all started with, Bruce and Koala wanting to just commit. But that interaction was definitely not what Machi is expecting. And at that point, teleports fall through. There's the unleashed power flash to the Scatter the Weak, so unfortunately it doesn't work out as Koala will fall next.
Yeah, that's a little tragic. Unfortunately, it seems like the lanterns have been a bit cursed for Koala, at least here in game 1. Both times it ends up getting Bruce into an unfortunate situation, but then Candy, unfortunately, just trying to get himself back to lane the fastest, ends up getting caught out by some ward coverage.
Yeah, I think it was the I think Candy was definitely in a hurry to catch the wave before crashing down to the tower instead of taking the long, safe way back. So that is quite unfortunate, but still that's 2 kills on top of a Syndra who's... Wow, this is non-stop.
Again, they're still looking for these fight. Bullet time is going to be there. River gets met by Gemini, and another good pillar is able to occupy Koala. Kaiwing, though, he's got a new target, and it's Bruce once again getting caught out. Kaiwing unstoppable so far when it comes to the Blitzcrank.
I feel so bad. That's 0-3-0 already for Bruce. Not even the lanterns, not even the summoner spells are going to help you out against Kaiwing here on the Blitzcrank. And he still does have his Ignite intact, so that will definitely be extremely annoying later on once Kaiwing and Unified, even with alongside River, is going to make more impact. And I think that is the problem with Machi consistently wanting to get priority too, as you're going to be open for River just getting the ganks in.
And so far, Talon have come to play. You got to consider, though, CS advantages elsewhere on the map is at least still keeping Machi ahead of Talon, even though they have the extra 3 kills. But in comes Kaiwing looking for another hook here onto Mission. Gets caught out by a ward that was placed down a bit earlier there by Koala as he looked to try and match the roam. But Talon not relenting pressure as they just go ahead and clear out vision.
Top.
Well, we'll get another look here. There we go. Out of the replay. Hanabi, he's able to survive here, but I don't know for how long underneath the tower. Gemini and PK are going to go and try and find themselves a quick and easy kill. Mission comes on by, and he actually gets the credit, so that's going to be some more gold funneled onto the Corki.
And that's going to be another advantage in terms of, you know, Candy managed to get 2 kills, but gets a shutdown coming from Mission, and now an extra kill too in his pocket. And it works out pretty well considering that's going to be first brick tower as well. If Machi decides to rush this, as I don't think Candy will be able to break this as well without the Rift Herald. And it's perfect timing too, as it is going to spawn. It will time their backs towards base for them to take that reset.
There you go. First tower will go in favor of Machi. That nets them about a 2,000 gold lead overall, but Talon are able to at least take objectives elsewhere, as they'll be able to claim themselves their second dragon of the game in response.
Yeah, that will be the exchange. First brick tower versus that dragon. Now the big question is whether or not Talon will be ready to pursue Machi when it comes to fighting for these objectives, as Mission is already stealing them red buff. But let's take a look at this gank. Yeah, Flash has already been used. Therefore, there's not a lot of escape for Hanabi.
He's able to delay it a little while, and that does give at least Talon the opportunity to set up around the dragon. But yeah, he's pretty much dead at this point. And the one good thing here for Machi so far is Mission is getting all the gold into his back pocket immediately in this game. He's picked up both shutdowns so far over Talon.
Yeah, has been stacking the tier pretty early as well into the Manamune, and was going to work his way on towards this Triforce, which is going to be a really sweet spot for the Corki. And unfortunately, package didn't really exactly time well for any sort of Rift Herald take, so perhaps that will be seen in the second Rift Herald. Actually, this is the second Rift Herald already.
So already looking to get some pressure here as Talon looking for a possible play. It is going to be Infernal Soul for our first game of the day in our grand finals. And you got to be a little bit careful. Even though Bruce was shut down pretty far, he is going a lethality build, so it's not super expensive for him to start doing some decent poke damage with the piercing arrow with that lethality. Talon looking to try and respond here as Machi have already started up the Rift Herald. River just going to go ahead and clear out some of the vision for members of Talon. But the 5th one of Machi is roaming up from the top lane, so they are going to allow Hanabi to get himself the first tier tower in bot lane. It looks like Talon are content just trying to at least pick up the first tier tower in mid in response to this Rift Herald and let that one go on over to Machi.
Oh, I'm worried because there's not... Oh!
He got hooked underneath the tower, has a stopwatch available. Kaiwing has to go and stasis himself. Bullet time, though, is there. That's going to be enough damage to try and take him down. Kaiwing almost gets taken out, but here comes PK on the flank. Gets flashed over. Unfortunately, he ends up flashing into the Aatrox queue. Candy able to survive with a flash of his own, but that's a lot of summoners burned here by Talon in response to just taking the tower in mid lane as it gets matched immediately by this Rift Herald.
Yeah, it's gonna be a support for a support! Coming!
Coming through!
What's it?
It's pretty close, but not enough. This Candy will survive.
I was so surprised. I was actually a little bit worried with a Valkyrie forward. Good thing Kaiwing was not around, because I feel like that would have been punished a little bit. But good thing at the moment, it seems to be, Machi's game plan to keep everything even. And here's the point where I thought I was worried because some of them were moving forward in range of the Q of Kaiwing without any sort of minion wave. So I was thinking that perhaps the mindset was maybe Koala can get a hook and get this, flank start from PK.
Yeah, PK, he's actually able to pick up another kill. So this Aatrox is starting to get a pretty big for the side of Machi, and it's something we've rarely seen Machi do is play via PK, but you already see them knocking on the door of the second tier tower. Meanwhile, Hanabi is trying to take first tier, and Machi kind of, turned the switch on after they got themselves that second Rift Herald. They're realizing, all right, you know what, this Aatrox is pretty strong. Mission already has himself the Trinity Force, as well as he's starting to stack his tier item. It's not a bad time to be Machi at this point, as Talon are kind of now looking to at least stop the bleeding here, as they're still down by about 2,000 gold.
Yeah, and we saw River think twice a little bit, cancel his sport to see whether or not they're going to go back and hope to set up a dive with Hanabi pushing topside. But since they were spotted pushing somewhere else, Machi decides to pour resources and get that inner tower as bot side. And it worked out pretty well. It's going to be very beneficial later on when it comes to getting more control over the blue side of Talon, even getting a little bit more advantage when it comes to the dragon take. So for Machi, you have to watch out for that part of the map as the reset has arrived.
See, we're going to have Infernal Drake spawning in about 45 seconds. He saw a mission nearby on the flank. Maybe he doesn't want to jump directly into a Trundle himself, as Gemini is also sneaking nearby. I'm interested to see whether or not Talon want to try and at least contest this third dragon. Luckily for them, there's no teleports available on the side of Machi, even though there's plenty of wards they could go for a flank here on PK. In behind them on their blue side jungle. Looks like for now, though, it's just going to be a little bit of ping pong in the mid lane while both carries are looking to scale up. Unified still waiting on about 1,500 gold, and then he'll have his Infinity Edge complete. So it's still a little bit before this misfortune is going to really start to hurt. So that does give Machi a little bit of room here if they want to try and go for this third dragon of the game.
Yeah, this is definitely the window that they're looking for, considering that they're pretty much such a poke-heavy comp, and they can play around this area as well and just dishing out all of the Qs and just try to avoid Kaiwing's sneaky Q, as Mission will dodge that a little bit.
A package is available from Mission, pressing forward. Dragon is live, so if Machi want to go ahead and start this, they can. Nice Shock Blast coming out, ends up hitting Bruce. 5,000 health on to the Dragon. You see Kaiwing and River starting to position themselves. Aatrox went over the wall here, so they could possibly go for the play. Dragon is secured on the side of Machi. Do they find a fight, though, in their favor? Neither side really wants to get too aggressive here, as Talon are able to backtrack to the mid lane.
Oop, nice attempt by Kaiwing, but unfortunately it will not hit. But yeah, it is pretty much a lot of respect coming from Talon. Just as you mentioned, this misfortune isn't just as primed and ready just yet to take on the impactful bullet times and have to farm it out a little bit. So they will have to rely on Kaiwing's hook to make it a 4v5 for them to contest early objectives, with the help of Hanabi as well to finish off a couple of kills that, the bullet time or possibly even Candy not being able to finish certain targets. And at this point, this is a pretty good spike for Mission 2. Muramana fully stacked, and I feel like the rockets will just really hurt against Talon.
Yeah, because the amount of poke that's going to come out here from Machi is going to be pretty devastating if Talon are not able to avoid it, especially once you start looking toward your third lethality item onto Bruce. Hook, though, does land here from Koala. They decide not to pull the trigger. His mission's just mainly trying to get himself his blue buff. So continue just to spam away the rockets, and with that, Talon are just going to back off here and reset. Yeah,
for Kaiwing, he did get that early. I think he got it around pre-10 minutes, I believe, this QSS. So he's hoping to get at least any of the CC starts, which is maybe the death sentence, and get that hook back. And at this point, it is still pretty much open, as we see, at least there's Bruce with the Edge of Night. That will help a little bit when it comes to playing around against Candy. But teleports are both up for the side of Talon. Unfortunately, they're not able to use that just yet. But for PK, it is already on with Mission getting it soon as well.
Kenny got to be a little bit careful. Koala's maybe looking for a roam towards the top lane, but he gets himself back over into the top side. Keep himself safe, continue to farm up. Talon just trying to clear out vision right now, and it kind of feels like we're in a bit of a period where Talon aren't going to necessarily try and do anything unless they're able to land a Blitz hook onto one of these carries to try and get a pick, maybe transition that into a Baron, but we're kind of see them fall back into the playstyle that we saw them do time and time again during the regular season when they aren't able to get a drastic gold advantage in the early part of the game. Oh no.
Yeah, no.
Ooh, Kaiwing able to get the
There it
cleanse
is.
off, doesn't get a rocket grab himself as both sides are missing skill shots left and right, but small things like that will cost you.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Since Kaiwing does have that QSS advantage over the CC, if Walla hits his hook, then he can hook the Thresh back, and it might be immediate 4v5, especially if Walla doesn't have his summoner spells. And with that said, Talon is able to at least have a little bit of breathing room after that. But for Machi, they are still continuing with the siege as Talon's map is a little bit dark except for the top portion of the map.
You can see there, Kaiwing's just fishing, maybe hoping he can get PK. Shock Blast is going to be nullified there by the Edge of Night, so Bruce is just going to be fine, and that's going to be the second tier tower in mid lane, and that gives Machi a decent amount of control toward the top side of the map now if they wish to use it, as they have a lot of vision laid down around the Baron, and you can see Talon are going to be hesitant. They're going to slowly try and push out and try and clear this out.
Yeah, it has something to do with, you know, having to take advantage of this Blitzcrank through vision, but unfortunately, Machi is one step ahead and is always trying to clean and deward the areas and where Blitzcrank just really likes to hang around, especially during around this Baron. But for now, it is going to be, you know, shoving the waves and see and wait for the next dragon to spawn, which is in about 60 seconds or less.
There you go, for Talon, you got Unified. He does hit his Infinity Edge, so now he's got about 50% crit chance. The bullet time is going to do a decent amount. Let's see here, Infernal up in 50. This is pretty much how Talon likes to play. They did get spotted out here. Koala's going to get knocked up and immediately gets bursted on down, and Kaiwing will get the kill credit. Gemini, though, immediately on top of Unified. In comes the package from Mission from the teleport. In, though, Hanabi tries to answer. PK wants to join in on the slam, and Talon, they try and fight back, but immediately they are just destroyed here by PK and Mission off the teleports.
They were in a perfect situation too, and it seems to me they aren't stopping. They want the killing towards Candy. Candy even not porting back just yet to make sure that everyone else managed to get back safe, but this leaves room for Machi to take this dragon, and that choke point was just perfect.
Yeah, unfortunately here for Talon, they kept thinking they have the better advantage, but PK is an absolute monster now on this Aatrox when it comes to skirmishes. They had a slight idea. Yeah, they were able to see River for half a second. They had an idea that there was a Blitzcrank nearby, but they still decided to try and go for this.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of peel to work with for Unified, especially that, you know, Candy was not exactly around the area too, so it was free reign for the rest of the members to just collapse, and unfortunately they aren't able to kill Mission with that timing on that stopwatch. So with that said, you know, the fighting power coming from Machi is slowly building up, and now pressure just comes towards Kaiwing and Candy for them to get a hook and get a burst.
So with that, second Infernal was secured by Machi during the replay. So now able to equal out the Dragon stacks, as well as get themselves a little bit extra damage. You also got to worry a little bit now as Mission has hit his rapid fire cannon, and once he gets, I'm going to believe that's going to be likely a Infinity Edge on the next buy. If he wants to go full straight up upfront damage on this Corki. Mission is going to be an absolute menace for any of your backline carries if he's able to jump in and get away with it.
And the question is, we always wanted to ask when we saw the Talon and AHQ matchup, who has the ability to deal damage to the backline, who has backline access, and it's basically not exactly existent in Talon's composition at the moment. They need to get that head start first when it comes to engaging, and make it an immediate 4v5 with the Syndra and with the Blitzcrank. And unfortunately, they did that earlier against Koala though, which is the support, so you didn't have exactly enough resources to fight back in terms of cooldown, as that was the go signal for Gemini and Mission to just run straight first to Unified.
And on the side here of Talon, they're just trying to hunt down what looks like PK, but if they're going to just play on the bot side of the map, again, Machi are going to be happy just taking away full Baron control back into their favor. Mission is going to continue to farm up a Storm, almost hitting now 300 CS at 27 minutes. He's been absolutely farming like a mad lad, getting himself 60 CS ahead of Candy Syndra. We kind of talked this mid lane matchup we thought was going to be one of the big deciders when it comes to this series. Can Candy stay toe-to-toe with Mission, where, you know, almost a majority of the players in the league absolutely respect Mission and consider him possibly the best player overall?
Yeah, Mission has been extremely consistent when it comes to the PCS in general, and it has been the bane for most of the teams. They have a hard time, especially when the 5v5 comes. When we saw a couple of impact plays coming from Candy earlier on, but seems to fade out after the 20-minute mark. So at this point, how can they take advantage and make do of what they have right now with their composition?
Well, this has always been kind of the thing when it comes to Talon. They play into these kind of compositions that you need to try and be aggressive early. You got to try and punish, but unfortunately, it's just not within their style of play unless they are pretty much forced to in a Game 4. That's the only time we have seen extremely aggressive Talon Esports, was when they are forced to a Game 4 and they have to try something new. Now in the Game 1 here of Machi, it might be similar where they got to start playing a little bit more aggressive. They want to try and match Machi.
Yeah, I think it seems to me for Talon, they are a little bit more on the reactive side of things, especially when we saw their match against AHQ. And suddenly when push comes to shove, that's the time they sort of ramp it up a little bit in terms of their presence in the map and their consistency. And at this point, it makes me wonder, maybe this is their style, losing the first game to just adjust later on and push them a little bit more, as they've been taking the best of 5 series into Game 5s. And it's not going to be a problem for Talon, for me, in my opinion, because again, they've faced throughout immense pressure before, and losing game number 1 isn't exactly such a huge factor into their mental.
So though, Machi are looking relatively clean. It was mainly off Kaiwing where he was able to get some good blitzcrank hooks, and I like that River was aggressive at least early on the Trundle. We saw him visit bot lane multiple times, and it showed that that combo can work well for Talon, but we just didn't see that gold advantage or anything transition elsewhere onto the map. And unfortunately here for Hanabi too, I have to say he wasn't able to find a natural advantage himself. You know, the team always talks about how, you know, if Hanabi's able to get fed or if he's able to play well, the team doesn't have to worry about anything. Well, he's 0-2 currently on a Jace, and unfortunately you're starting to hit the limit of how important this Jace is really going to become, because at what point is the Jace going to be able to jump onto Mission or Bruce?
Yeah, I think that is the unfortunate problem that happened in the early game, because I think the playstyle is definitely, you know, Hanabi getting that winning matchup. The big problem is if the enemy jungler will constantly pressure your top side, then the assistance of your ally jungler will be needed to counter that. But unfortunately, it hasn't been exactly the trend that we see coming from River in the previous games, and as he is focused more on bot side, maybe even sometimes Candy.
Oh, PK.
Oh, that's a hook.
Gets hooked back, is forced to flash to safety, as Talon are able to find a pick, but still do not find the kill, as they were hoping to at least get one of those before this dragon spawned. Candy Unified able to sidestep away from the piercing arrow. This Machi continue to have control here. A nice hook though coming out from Koala. River doesn't get dragged back entirely. Mission does have package available, and himself also 2 levels above Candy. This Corki is an absolute menace, and like that, it's going to be the 3rd Infernal Drake secured by Machi.
Lots of firepower, literally, on the side of Machi, and they're garnering and slowly closing into that Dragon Soul in the next 5 minutes, more or less. And for Talon, they will definitely be a little bit pressured getting that. And one thing that we noticed before in previous games, sometimes Gemini's securing his abilities to secure objectives isn't as consistent, so perhaps that could be the window. You know, Dragon Soul has been stolen before, I believe during the series between Talon and Machi, so this could be a challenge. It's just that, how can they go near when there's just a ton of poke coming from Machi?
And it gets scary now, because you're going to have Infernal Soul coming online in about 4.5 minutes if Machi are able to secure it. And at that point, if you're Talon, you kind of just have to sit back and hope you can avoid all this poke, maybe find an all-in in your favor, or maybe find a pick early here as Koala might be caught out. They're doing a little bit back and forth. Does land the hook there onto River. Kaiwing will decide to pull the trigger, but PK is already on the front line, and this Aatrox is massive. Bullet Time wasn't able to do a whole lot itself as Unified just still doesn't have enough damage, it seems, and like that, Talon are going to lose out on their Blitzcrank, their prime engage.
Yeah, they're prime, they're safe engage, and now they can just try and resort to certain hooks, and Hanabi will come from the side a little bit. Look at River, he got chunked down really, really hard. As for Machi, they will linger around this Baron, so Talon has to decide if they want to pursue the 4v5.
It's a bit scary. Bruce is going to have the Chain of Corruption coming back off cooldown here shortly. Machi finding that pick or looking for another one here as Candy is way too far forward. Mission is unstoppable. And why is the Syndra in behind second tier tower in the jungle at this point in the game? That's going to be a Baron attempt here for Machi.
I feel like Candy was attempting a flank because their position states that they wanted to push forward to force Machi to go back a little bit and see if maybe Candy can sneak in.
And PK, he gets brought over the wall, but he says thank you because he can just run rampant. And unfortunately, Machi are just disgusting at this point. It's a double kill for the Corki. That's another 3 members of Talon down and a wave in the top lane. That's at least going to be the inhibitor, and you got 40 seconds on the Misfortune.
Gemini, I thought he was looking for Hanabi here as he was still lingering around. Oh, it's not going to be canceled.
Well, that's the push. It's going to be up to Hanabi here to try and save the game in Game 1 of the Grand Final. Luckily, Candy is back up. They're going to try and do their best, but Hanabi can't step forward without Mission absolutely blowing him apart. And there you go. Has to flash the safety, but Game 1, Machi are able to claim victory here. Candy making a final stand. Talon try to do their best, but Mission has eyes on the Nexus. And Game 1 of the Grand Final goes in favor of Machi.
They didn't even need to go for Baron to take this W. And with that, Machi with a strong finish all throughout, even during the team fights. And I mean, earlier on, Talon managed to get a few kills here and there, but unfortunately, that last little bit of error on the side of Candy getting caught out in the middle of things, and therefore Baron was open for the taking.
Yeah, and now we welcome back Crow onto the desk here. Crow, that game, it really just felt like the Machi show. It felt like Talon need to try and do something early, but this has been a crush of this team before.
Yeah, I completely agree. The way that Talon played this early game, I don't agree with at all. I think that, especially Unified by the bought a call very early on in the game on his first recall and teleported back to lane. And it seemed like Talon just wasn't willing to punish that at all. And then on top of that, even though they got the topside Scuttle Crab, they didn't really enable Hanabi to play aggressively on the Jace. And once he's burned his flash, Jace is just not the same champion. So they kind of lost their ability to do anything about the Corki early on, and then they kind of lost the ability to play through the Jace. And it just made the game very hard overall later on.
Yeah, and we kind of mentioned too, like this mid lane matchup in particular. If Mission is able to get his Corki, he's an absolute monster. You can even see on the player cam here, Candy. This, we talk about, you know, Talon's mentality. They're usually a happy squad even in losses. Candy's looking pretty down to start off Game 1.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with the last bit of happenings where Candy got caught out. And this is the first fight that Machi is able to win as complete fives, and unfortunately they managed to get Koala, but everybody else just has fallen to pieces.
And this was also because this was also one of the first times we got to see Machi actually play through PK when he was able to actually find himself a lead against Hanabi.
Yeah, Talon really, in that fight specifically, they really disrespected the teleports that were available to Machi at that time. And PK, he's playing a champion that wants the skirmish and team fight. If you ever let him get behind you, you're really not going to have a good time with an Aatrox knocking everyone up and just wreaking havoc in the back line.
Yeah, it's a bit disgusting to say the very least. So we'll take a look here at the post-game stats. It's a 33.5-minute Game 1 in favor of Machi. Now, Riku, you even mentioned, though, during the cast, this isn't out of the ordinary here for Talon. Game 1 loss, all right, that's totally fine. They still have 4 more games to deal with here. But for now, I felt like that was a very convincing Machi win and something that I don't think we really saw in the very first best of 5 between these two teams in the upper bracket.
Yeah, I mean, it was more of, Machi winning and the next one was Talon winning. So it was definitely a series where it was alternating wins. And after this first match, it looks, just as you mentioned, very convincingly. But again, they're no stranger to such big defeats, huge defeats like this, as we saw how they had to deal with, AHQ's very first game where everybody else was pretty much dying on Talon's side, but still managed to get the win on the series.
And MVP, it is going to go on over to Mission on his Corki. And I got to ask you, do you even let Mission have this champion? He's shown himself, I believe he's close to undefeated so far in PCS when he picks up the Corki. As far as like, Crow, does Talon try and at least change up some of their plan when it comes to the draft?
I mean, I think you have to do. One of the most frustrating things about playing against Corki is not only the fact that he's extremely safe in lane, but once he's picked up the package, you really can't contest an objective. He has a way of just kind of shutting your ability to fight around the objective down. He has an ability of kind of stagnating the early game, and if you don't do anything to punish him, he's just going to run away with the game and outscale you. So I would like to see a Corki ban. I really don't want to see Mission playing it 3 games and 3-0ing this series, but if they give it, Machi will just take it. And he's shown that he's comfortable blind picking it. They first picked the Varus, they responded immediately with the Syndra, and then he blind picked the Corki. So unless Talon decides that they have something up their sleeve for the Corki specifically, I just want to see it. I don't want to see it on the Rift.
Well, we'll have to see what Big Fafa and the crew have planned. We're going to go ahead and take a short break. When we come back, though, it is going to be Game 2 of our grand final after Machi are able to take Game 1.